everybody, and I hope you had a lovely Christmas and Happy New Year to you all. Who'd have thought we were going to end up in this situation again, but here we are, back in lockdown. Now before the holidays, there was a suggestion we might be off the first week back, but it looks like it's maybe going to be extended for a bit longer now. And I did ask if we do a wee cook-along video what kind of things you would like, and the only response I got was some bread-based pizza. But I'm not doing that today, but I thought if we do that one next week, if you could get yourself, if you want to do it, some strong bread flour and some dried yeast. Now you can get this in a sachet if you can't get the tin. And again, the strong bread flour, if you can't find that, don't worry, plain flour will do. You'll also need some tinned tomatoes and some cheese and other bits and pieces you've probably all got in the house. But today I thought I would start off with a fruit crumble. If you're like me and over the Christmas your house has been, you've been eating all the junk of the day and not eating all the fruit in the fruit bowl. Well, I had a load of apples this morning which were going a bit soft, and instead of throwing them out, put them to good use, we're going to put them into a fruit crumble, and that's a good way of getting fruit into us and using up something that we might otherwise throw away. Now ideally start off with the crumble topping, but I've already prepared my apples. I had about 6 apples which I've peeled and just put into chunks. Better leaving that till after you've done the crumble, because as you can see they've started to go a little bit brown. Now, because they're eating apples and not cooking apples, we don't really need to add an awful lot of sugar, so I'm just going to sprinkle maybe a tablespoonful of sugar over the top just to give it a little bit of syrup when it cooks in the oven. But it's a good way of not eating too much sugar by eating apples. Now I picked up these raspberries in Aldi's. They were obviously going out of date and they were reduced. Ideal to pick up something like that and just throw them into the freezer. And it looks like that's my husband arrived home, so he's going to interrupt this video, but never mind. I'm just going to sprinkle on some of these raspberries, extra vitamin C, really good, and as I say, if you see them reduced, just pick them up. And that gives a nice flavour to your crumble. You don't need to add raspberries. If you want a wee bit spice, you could add some cinnamon. Right, now onto the crumble topping. I've got in my bowl 300 grams of plain flour. Now, you can make as much or as little as you want depending on the size of the dish, but for this size of dish, which will serve about 4, maybe 6 people, you can cut it down if you've got less apples. Just remember it's half fat to flour. The fat I'm using is just margarine. Some people prefer butter. You can use what you like, it doesn't matter. So 300 flour, so I need 150 of margarine. I'm just going to pop that straight into the bowl. 150. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut this up using just a normal round bladed tea knife from your drawer, not a sharp knife. And I'm cutting against the side of the bowl. Now if you cut it as small as you can before you get your hands in, it saves it pouring, it saves your margarine melting with the heat of your hands too quickly. So cut it as small as you can, and you see I'm cutting it against the side of the bowl and coat the margarine in the flour. Once you've done that, you're then going to go in with your hands, which you've of course washed thoroughly. Now you're rubbing in between your fingertips and your thumb, and what you're aiming to do is coat all this flour with the margarine or butter, depending on what you decide to use. So you're rubbing between your fingertips and your thumb. Now you're not pressing it in the bowl like this, otherwise you'll end up with a dough, and we don't want that. We want a nice crumbly texture to this. If you feel your hands are starting to get hot and your margarine's starting to melt, just wash your hands under the cold running water to cool them down a bit. If you keep shaking your bowl, the big lumps of fat are going to come to the surface, and then just rub them in. Get right underneath that flour. And what we're aiming for is something that resembles fine breadcrumbs or sand. So you'll see your flour starting to turn a nice yellowy colour. Right, once you've got that all rubbed in, you're then going to wash your hands and add some sugar. You could add the sugar before, it doesn't really matter. Pop it back on the scales. You will of course wash your hands, I'm not, because I'm not near the sink. And I'm going to add some sugar, 150 grams of sugar, so the same amount of sugar as what you've added margarine. So if you're making it a bit smaller, use 200 flour, 100 margarine and 100 sugar, and you're just going to stir that sugar in, just stir it in with your knife. Another thing I quite like to add is some porridge oats. Now porridge oats give it a good bit of fibre. Just going to add a couple of spoonfuls, not too much, and then just stir that in. And then you're just going to pour that on top of your fruit. Now this is quite a lot of crumble in my family. Really prefer the crumble bit to the fruit, but that's not the healthiest bit for you. And then don't press it down flat, just give it a wee shake, and then into the oven at 180 for about 20 minutes until it starts to go nice and golden and crispy on the top. And I'll show you that later once it's ready. So the crumble's now had about 20 to 25 minutes in the oven, so I'm going to get it out. Make sure you've got oven gloves to get it out. And very carefully, there we are, nice and golden brown, which is what we're looking for. Shut this oven and I'll dish up a little bit to let you see how delicious this looks. There we go, and I think the raspberries give it a nice colour. So that with a nice dollop of ice cream or some custard, whatever you fancy. Now it just so happens, I was watching the Great British Bake Off New Year after I'd made this, and the very first thing they do on that is crumble. And they design their own fruit crumble, and say they obviously make their own ice cream as well. But it would be worth having a look at that and maybe get some ideas for what you're going to add in your crumble. And if you come up with something really original, take a photograph and post it on the Teams page so we can have a look at what you've made. Or you could put it on Twitter, just whatever you like. Well, have a go at some baking and stay safe. Bye for now.